All right, everyone. Welcome to the remote workflows. The remote workflows for post webinar. My name is Ray Thompson, and I'm the director of broadcast and media solutions marketing here at Avid. I'm responsible for all things video and video post. And I want to thank you and welcome you all to this webinar. On today's webinar, we're going to focus on workflows enabled during both COVID and post or pre-COVID. We're going to really focus our energy on how to enable both remote workflows and whether those remote workflows are happening on-prem, which is where we'll spend the bulk of our time, or even from the cloud. We'll touch on that a little bit in this webinar as well. So when the webinar is over, you should have a really good sense for how to enable remote workflows, leveraging your existing on-prem working environments. So my name is Ray Thompson. I also have Michael Krulik, who is our video product evangelist here at Avid, and he focuses also on all things video. We're lucky enough to also have partners from Teradici. So Ian Main, who's technical marketing principal at Teradici, is also here today. And he and I will be chatting about what Teradici is capable of in this workflow. And then we also have Tommy Gustafson, who is the Strategic Alliance Sales Development Manager at Teradici. So with that, we'll just kind of get started. Just some house cleaning. So if you have a question anytime during the webinar, please use the Q&A section of your screen, and you can basically ask a question. We have a host of folks who are from the product team and the solutions marketing team and the sales engineering team who can answer those questions in the Q&A chat. And then if we have time at the end, we'll also go ahead and answer those questions, a few of them live. So once again, use the Q&A section to ask any question you'd like throughout the course of the webinar, and we will have people answering those questions as they get asked. And we'll pick a few at the end to ask the panel. So we just did the introduction, and we're going to do a demo today of what's possible with both Media Central Editorial Management and Media Composer Cloud VM, enabling both remote workflows, whether that be from home or on set. And then we'll also dive deeply into Teradici and how Teradici is enabling through PCOIP or PC over IP technologies to enable both secure and very compelling experience when it comes to using editing tool sets in modern editing environments. Then we'll do some Q&A. So certainly things have changed a lot in the last 5 or 6 months. You know, even before COVID began though, Avid certainly had a whole host of tool sets that it offered to the media entertainment environment to enable remote workflows. And back then we were thinking about enabling remote workflows primarily from out in the field. So that could have been, if it was a film, it could be from the set. If it was news or sports, it could be done from, you know, out in the field or at an event. But once COVID started, that really accelerated the need for production companies to enable work from home models. And certainly all the hard work that went into both virtualizing the environments as well as enabling remote access through tools like Teradici really became paramount for business continuity reasons. So in order to continue editing content that maybe had already been shot prior to COVID hitting, or even doing new content, but doing so in alternative ways to what we were all used to before COVID, it really required the ability to access environments from anywhere. And that's what we're talking about. So certainly, as most of the events, especially live events, have been canceled, certainly here in the US and I'm sure all around the world. And depending on where you live, you may be experiencing either the tail end of a first wave or maybe even a second wave, like here in the US. It has certainly had a significant impact on the entertainment industry's ability to create content. And so we're now just starting to work our way back in, but certainly remote environments have certainly enabled the continuity to happen, which has been absolutely critical. So really what we've been, I think, finding as an industry is not only are these tool sets available, but they're actually really good. They provide a very good experience. We have found in an overwhelming way by talking to customers that they're very surprised and very pleased with how things work from home, leveraging both virtualized environments to enable both Media Composer running inside of an on-prem or cloud environment, but also being able to access Media Composer securely using PCOIP, which is from Teradici. So it's been pretty amazing, actually, to see just how the industry has really adapted to these changing times. And so the ability to not only collaborate in the same environment and work from home, all securely has been really enabled. And we have several customers doing that today. When COVID hit, Avid extended free licenses to the industry, and literally tens of thousands of companies have taken advantage of that offer. And we are really pleased with the way in which the companies responded and continues to respond to the crisis. And so with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to my colleague, Michael. And Michael's going to walk us through a demo of both Media Composer Cloud Remote and Teradici. Michael, you there?
I will unmute. I think that helps.
Take it away.
Hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go for it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for joining. Great introduction, Ray. Just so you all know, again, my name is Michael Krulik. I'm the video product evangelist for Avid out of Los Angeles, California. And the whole idea of being able to work remotely, which everybody needs to do now, is very important. So what I am working on is I am going to be doing my demonstration off of a Mac laptop, but I will be able to use multiple tools to be able to remote into Media Central editorial management, and also using Teradici to log into an instance of Media Composer VM, so in a virtual environment. So you don't have to have Media Composer on your system when you're working. And the great thing going into Media Composer editorial management is it's set up depending on your roles, and it's all focused on post-production workflows using Media Composer and Nexus as basically the heart of editorial. And we also wanted to create Media Central editorial management to not be intrusive to the editorial process. We didn't want editors to have to learn anything new. We wanted editors to do what they do best, which is the craft of editing. So the nice thing about editorial management is it's going to let me use, you'll see I'm in currently a web browser. So through a web browser, I'll be able to access bins and projects with Media Composer as well as media, but not disturb the editor. So let me go ahead and log into the web browser. Again, this is all set up by user permissions, and basically set up depending on the role that somebody has. So if a producer or an assistant doesn't necessarily need to be inside of Media Composer, they don't have to be, which is fantastic. So through the web browser here, what you're seeing on the left side is the directory panel. Now again, realize that I could be anywhere in the world, basically. I could be on Wi-Fi if I have a decent connection. We say about 25 meg connection is really good to be able to get great performance. And I'm logging into my Nexus workspaces. So this should be very familiar to anybody in a Media Composer environment. My workspaces are set up the way I want to see them. I have my Avid projects. We see the Avid projects listed here. We can open up the directory panel. Let's go ahead and take a look at the demo days project that I currently have. And basically everything is set up. If I look at maybe the editor's window right here and zoom in, you'll notice that the icons represent the same icons of bins inside of Media Composer. And you also have your bin locking and project sharing, just like you were in a collaborative Media Composer environment connected to Nexus, but I'm in a web browser. And I can go in and open up any of these bins. Let's go and look at Kate Haight here. And I'm looking at media. I'm getting information. I'm getting metadata through the web browser. And by the way, this media isn't in Los Angeles. It's in Burlington, Massachusetts. It's at Avid corporate headquarters. And I'm accessing it through the web browser. Now you'll see in the upper left-hand corner, we have a simple set of applications or apps. We have the Browse app. we have a search app, we have a logging app, and we have distributed processing where you can actually see the status if you're setting up a render farm. That's a completely different demonstration. We can talk about that another time. But I simply want to go in and browse media. I want to take a look at clips inside of an Avid project. And if I double click on any of these clips, I get a preview window. This window, and by the way, you can change the view if you'd like. If I want to listen to what Kate is saying right here,
what I was doing really, and it was only after I
simply double click and play. And we have a viewer which is taking a look at Avid media and playing it back. I'm scrubbing Avid media from cross country through the web browser. And
I use it all the time.
I use it all the time. And the responsiveness is really fantastic. And the quality is great too. Plus, if you want to get a full screen view of what's playing back, there's a little icon to the upper right-hand corner. I hit view, and I'm now getting a full screen playback of that as well. Well, I should be. So anyway, we'll go ahead and play that down. Let me double click, bring up another clip. It's accessing that asset. All right, we'll go back and play some of these shots of Kate. There we go. I'm trying to get some, there we go.
But it's digital in that you can.
All right, so we are getting a preview of audio. So I could be monitoring the audio there. I could be looking at metadata. So this is information on that clip as well. Now, metadata is important here because it's a mechanism to search, to log. I can go in and type in a description to say, Kate talking about script sync. And this is now metadata that I could use to search on. Okay. Now, previewing media, going in and browsing, looking at clips is really great. But let's say you're an assistant who doesn't have access to Media Composer at this time. So if I want to go into my Demo Days project and right click, I can create folders and bins through the web browser as well. So if I say I want to create a bin, I'm going to call this bin new media. It's going to add a new media bin right here, but of course it's empty. But the nice thing is I can go in and start dragging and dropping clips into this new media bin quickly and easily. So let's say I want to take a shot of Kim Roberts right here. We'll take this shot. We'll just drop it into the new media bin. Let's take a shot of, let's say, Stuart. We have the little breadcrumbs across the top here, which let me navigate quickly through my projects as well. And now if I open up the new media bin, we'll see those two clips. We could also go in and subclip. So if we have a shot that we want to go in and start marking ins and outs on a clip, we can do that. I hit S to create a subclip, and I'm now subclipping as well. Media that's on the other side of the country. So we can go in, add subclips. We can go in and build bins through the new hyperbin technology that we have here. Plus we can go in and start creating sequences. So if we have let's say a few shots of Stuart Bass right here, we'll go ahead and take some shots of Stuart. That's interesting. Let me just sign out and sign back in just to refresh this. Maybe my connection is not as good as I thought. I'm going to go back into my project here. And let's go into, take a couple shots of Doc. We'll take this one. We'll do a shift click on several of these. And then when I right click, I can create a sequence. Now this sequence could be subclips. I can go in and rearrange the clips here as well. We'll go ahead and rename this as my new cut. And it now has created a sequence that I'll be able to load into my timeline here. So it is actually showing me the cuts here, but what's even more powerful is I can bring up an actual timeline here. And this timeline will let me go in and add clips. I can go in and move clips around. I can go in and preview that. But more importantly, all of this is prepping the bin and information, all of that into my project and prepping it for the editor. Now, this was all done just with the Browse app. We do have the Search app as well, which lets me search. And this search can be done with metadata. Metadata can be, let's say I want to find any close-up of Kate. So I want to find any close-up of Kate. This can be a compound search. I hit the search, and it's now going to bring up any instance where it finds a match where there is a close-up of Kate. Okay, double click. What we see in our hits is a little dot. The little dot actually indicates where it finds a match. There's Kate, or actually Cat, and close-up. And it's actually showing me any instance where there is a match with, there's Kate right there. Now, what's even more powerful besides metadata is being able to search using phonetic searching. If you know Media Composer, you may have heard of phrase find. And phrase find lets you search phonetically through your project to find clips. Now, the power of that is now in Media Central Editorial Management, where I can do a phonetic search across all of my projects. Now, again, the real power here with editorial management in the web browser is I'm currently looking at over 1,500 assets across all of my projects on Nexus. I have filtering where I can see anything that's been checked in or created the last 10 minutes, last hour, last 24 hours. I can take a look at, let's see, there are like over 1,300 master clips, 88 sequences. We can quickly go and navigate to any assets just by selecting the type or the creation time. But if I want to search using the phonetic searching, let's say I want to find anytime somebody says the word script, I pull down the little left side of the pill, or the little blue color here, and you can see I can do a search by metadata, by name, or phonetic. And if I say I want to do a phonetic search on script, I hit search, and it's now found multiple instances where the editors were talking about scripts, or script-based editing, or script sync. And the number to the right here is actually telling me how many times they said it. Now I'm going to really drive some information here. I want to add another phonetic search. Let's say I want to find anytime somebody says the word documentary and the word script. So we're going to do multiple phonetic searches across those, and we're seeing that Kim actually says 11 times script or the word documentary. So let's take a look. When I double click, we'll see under little viewer here and the hits tab, we have phonetic. And we actually get all of the information where she says the word documentary and script. We get the time code where she says it. We see how confident it is that it found a match where she said the word. And also, this is the clip itself. This is the duration of the clip. These little marks here are telling me where she said those words. And when I select, it takes me right to where she says the word.
The documentary called Inequality for All.
Let's go to the next one, documentary. Or script. Well, you get the idea. So you have all that information. You can see where she says it. I could go in now and mark ins and outs and go in and create subclips around that and start building sequences. Now, again, the important thing I mentioned here is that this is in the web browser. This is being created outside of Media Composer, but this is a collaborative process. So I'm going to go to my Teradici client, and I want to log into the instance of Media Composer, which also lets me access Media Central Editorial Management. So I'll log in. I am on a Mac, so it is probably going to prompt me for a login on my Macintosh. And now it's going to bring up through the Teradici client Media Composer. Now again, Media Composer is virtual. It's running in a different server, on a different server, and giving me access, but allowing me to go in and access Media Central Editorial Management. This is the exact same window. This is the exact same Media Central that I had through the web browser. I've logged into it into Media Composer. And by the way, if you haven't seen this, these are now paneled where I could take Media Central and lock it into the UI. So I can actually have it panelized in the user experience. And now I can go in and open up those exact same projects. And the great thing about this is I can take a look at any project. Let's say I want to go into my Agent MX0 project, and I can go ahead and access any media inside of that. Or Agent X. See what happened here. All right. All right, we'll close the project and go back in. All right, there we go. We're logged into Media Central. And we'll access that again. I think Zoom is giving me a little instance here where I can't log in. All right, so let me just log out again. And by the way, instead of going in here, we'll go into the Teradici client again and log into another instance of Media Composer and work off of that. So again, being able to go in and there we are. So Media Composer running through Teradici.
More or less mundane.
The real issue here, or the real thing you want to be worried about, is ballistics. And what you're finding is
I sometimes
I'm just hitting J, K, and L
spinning my
to
wheels.
play back and forth, and the ballistics are fantastic. Anybody who's working with the Teradici client and logging into Media Composer VM is finding that it's just as if they were in the edit bay. So they can go in, they're working, they're looking at amazing quality, the ballistics to be able to go in and play and access media, marking editorially. They're finding the experience is just the same as being inside of the edit bay. So I think I've taken up enough time here. Why don't I go ahead and pass it back to Ray? And I think we have the team from Teradici who's going to talk about how their technology has improved and how it's being used today in remote editorial.
Excellent. Thanks, Michael. I will go ahead and reshare my screen. So what Michael just showed you was really two things, right? It was browser-based editing, which enables you to access the repository from really any device using a simple web browser that has powerful search and editing capabilities. And then he showed you the ability to access a Media Composer environment and do so remotely, leveraging Teradici's client. And so I want to bring on Tommy now. Tommy and Ian, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you, Michael. Just want to double check that you can hear me okay.
Absolutely, can hear you great. So
Wonderful.
why don't you walk us through sort of what's behind what Michael just demoed in terms of the remote accessibility, leveraging the Teradici client.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. First and foremost, folks, thanks for joining today, tonight, this evening, wherever you are, live or on demand. Really appreciate your time. My name is Tommy Gustafson, and I'm part of our strategic alliances team, working with our partners like Avid, of course, to ensure that we're delivering the best solution to our shared customers. So yeah, I'll talk for a couple minutes about Teradici as a company, what challenges we help our customers solve, before turning it over to Ian Main, our technical marketing principal, for a bit of a deeper dive. So as you can see here, Teradici was founded in 2004, revolutionizing the industry in virtual desktop computing with the ultra-secure PC over IP protocol. Today, we have PC over IP protocol, PC over IP Ultra, and we have our flagship product called Cloud Access Software, which we'll be taking a deeper dive into as well. So through the adoption of those technologies over the years, we've amassed a wide ecosystem of over 13 million, actually over 15 million endpoints worldwide. And if you follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, or if you see on the Teradici website, we're running a current campaign called Did You Know? And one of the more interesting facts that we raised about Teradici is, did you know that we actually have the largest VDI endpoint ecosystem in the world? So through our technology of PC over IP, we've been deployed in some of the largest leaders in the Fortune 500, from enterprises in multiple vertical industries to the public sector, where we're widely known for our ultra-secure architecture. And you'll also see that we're partnered with many of the major technology vendors that you know and love, from every cloud vendor, where you'll see Teradici published in every major marketplace and available really on every flavor of OEM in terms of hardware, to deploy in a hybrid or on-premises fashion, or again, fully in the public cloud, depending on your infrastructure, and in a virtualized fashion or on bare metal if you so choose. And continuing on. So thinking about Teradici and why now and why adopt cloud access software from Teradici. First and foremost, we're well known for our high performance user experience. I don't have to explain to the many artists, the creators, the editors on today's webinar how important things like build to lossless and color accuracy are to your entire production cycle. And so one of the features that Teradici has benefited customers the most with is our dynamic network adaptation. And that allows folks really to have that consistent high performance user experience that's automatically delivered to you on any device under changing network conditions. Secondly, as mentioned, security is really in our DNA. PC over IP traffic is secured with native encryption, and with our stateless zero clients, it really is the most secure, easy to manage solution on the market. And that's why you've seen over the years, since Teradici's inception, why partners like VMware and AWS have licensed our technology in their native remote access solutions over the years. Thirdly, it's our ease of deployment that separates us from other solutions. Teradici truly is a lightweight, simple, and easy to deploy solution for hybrid cloud environments. Many folks are seeking today that true goodness of a hybrid cloud solution that just works, whether you're deploying on premises, into a public cloud, or both. Ian is going to show you in one of the next slides how our Cloud Access Manager solution enables you to get that simple brokering, provision, and endpoint management solution. Right. And we'd encourage you folks too, just in the demo that you saw from Michael, test out that ease of deployment for yourself. Follow up with us after the webinar and ask to demo Avid on Teradici. And again, see for yourself just how easy it is to deploy, manage, and scale the solution. And lastly, it's the widest platform flexibility on the market that Teradici has that allows us to be deployed truly everywhere and anywhere. If you follow us as well, you'll see that we're currently running a campaign called Make Remote Work Work, everywhere and anywhere. So we're eliminating the complexity of choice with your infrastructure. Deploy Windows, Linux, GPU, non-graphics applications and workstations on any hypervisor, on any cloud and on any on-premises infrastructure as well. We'll take care of the SDKs, the APIs, all of the complexity on the back end to make sure that your solution just works with Avid, that you can get up and running and just go. And with that, I will turn it over to Ian Main from our side.
Excellent. Thanks, Tommy. And yes, it is an absolute pleasure to be partnering with the Avid team and Ray and Michael this evening or this morning, depending on where you are. And I'm looking forward to just spending a few more minutes elaborating on some of the topics that Tommy introduced there. Firstly, PCI over IP is used in many industries: finance, government, IT, and healthcare. And in most industries, the IT department or the CIO administrators get to prescribe or dictate the infrastructure. But in media and entertainment and video editorial applications, it's quite different. The content creators and the artists are the ones who really get to sign off on the performance, because if they can't do their job, it's lost productivity all the way around. So they're really interested in this high interactivity, the smooth frame rates that you might get and are required. They need that imaging to be free of artifacts so that they can trust the content and not be concerned about the remote protocol. And I think it's already been said that they're looking for that same user experience as if the workstation was under their desk, which is how many artists started out. So, content creators are doing delicate and sensitive work, and the protocol needs to work for them. And at Teradici, this has been our focus for the past 15 years. That quality, accuracy, and the fact that the protocol works on any network. I'll touch on that a bit. But the one line item on this slide is that is in the hands of IT, and the corporate side is security. And security comes in several layers within our protocol. We encrypt the protocol itself. There's just pixels that are going across a network that are encrypted. But there's a data security architecture that goes hand in hand with our protocol. And in the media and entertainment industry, there's industry bodies like the MPAA or CDSA or Trusted Partner Network in North America and Europe that prescribe the security requirements of studios to enable them to work on their content. And what this is a secure content network with all the files secured in the data center or the cloud. And none of these files out at the endpoints where they can become vulnerable to hacking or theft or loss or just the need to track inventory. So the fundamental architecture of centralizing data is the way the world is going to move forward, and we're part of that same architecture. So this is really exciting to see. So we can move on to the next slide there, Ray. Yeah, so we talked about high performance user experience. That's something that Tommy brought up there. So on the left-hand side is a graph of the bandwidth required. So this is the network bandwidth for a video playback, as an example. And the image quality is the scale there on the far left. And most remote protocols are able to adjust backward down. If you have a poor network bandwidth, they're able to adjust down to lower image quality. That's what you would expect of any protocol. But the difference with PCI over IP is that dotted area where if you have sufficient resources and network bandwidth, we're able to scale that image quality all the way up to that lossless, which was mentioned earlier. And on the right-hand side, you can see a bar graph of just how it compares to a standard RDP type protocol. On the far left in gray, there is the RDP, and the default quality for PCI over IP with the orange star is, as you can see, quite a bit higher. And in fact, for people looking to do finishing work and the very high quality work, you can see it can scale even higher than that. So when we look at these quality curves, a couple of questions will come to mind. So I'll ward them off right now. The first is, how much network bandwidth are we actually talking about here? And network bandwidth consumption is content dependent, but what we see is for a dual 1080p display setup, up to 10 megabits per second could be prescribed, and typically on average over the longer term, quite a bit less than that would be used. And you need to account for peaks in bandwidth. So, maybe 20 megabit peaks, but that doesn't mean that you'll be using that sort of bandwidth all the time. So if you're in an environment where you're sharing the bandwidth, you would typically share a link, maybe 100 megabits, and each content creator might be using on average about 5 megabits per second for a 1080p environment. Now, if you have bigger displays up to 4K, we'll talk about, then so that bandwidth scales up. And the frame rates, if they're, we're talking about 24 to 25 frames per second as normal content, but the protocol scales up to much higher frame rates, then you would scale your bandwidth accordingly. The other aspect from a performance point of view, just on the slide still, is the interactive latency. How interactive is the protocol? So as you separate the user from the data center where they're working, whether it's your studio or broadcast center or public cloud, that latency will affect the responsiveness. And the protocol supports all the way up to 250 milliseconds, which is myself here in Canada working all the way across to United Kingdom or Asia. It's the protocol will work fine, but you won't get that high interactivity that you would work if you're doing editing where you have very fast keystrokes. So we would typically suggest below 50 milliseconds of round-trip latency between the user and their data center. And to give you a rough sense of that, I'm here on the west coast of Canada, and my everyday workstation is down in central, on the west coast, Oregon area, and that's less than 20 milliseconds of latency. So typically for North America, as an example, 1 or 2 data centers, one on the east and one on the west coast, would cover most users. If you're in Europe, you might have one in UK or on the mainland continent, and that would serve Europe. And then in Asia, 1 or 2 data centers. So that gives you the breadth to give you that interactivity that people are looking for. And with that, we can move to the next slide. Yeah, so Tommy mentioned how we have a long history with many partners, and so you may have heard of PC over IP in the context of VMware Horizon several years ago. If this is a graph of the progression of our protocol over time. So our original software protocol was tuned for HD display at 30 frames per second. Back at that time, it was quite impressive performance. And if you are using VMware Horizon, that would be the codec that's implemented. Several years later, we moved it to a multi-threading architecture to support up to 60 frames per second as our product was used in visual effects in these markets that demand higher frame rates. And then in 2019, we launched the PC over IP Ultra enhancements. And this is the top right-hand icon there, which sets us for 4K workloads and up to 60 frames per second. So currently full screen 4K at 30 frames per second is what's supported, and we're working hard to get beyond that today. And we've incorporated 2 advanced codecs to give you that performance. Firstly, if you're using CPU-based encoding, we take advantage of the AVX2 instruction set, which is effectively acceleration features on a server or a workstation processor to get you very fast encoding without using much CPU resources. So that's the goal there, so that your CPU is available for your Avid applications and your transcoding and all these functions. We also have an option for GPU acceleration. We partner with NVIDIA and use the NVENC encoding. And this has the advantage if you're working on a network that isn't really cut for high bandwidth availability. You're on a WAN network in a remote site, for example. The H.264 codec gives you very bandwidth efficient operations. And this allows you to work on these high resolution workloads without using too much network bandwidth. So that's the protocol progression. And the cloud access software today we're talking about is now that PC over IP Ultra is fully integrated, and you can just configure it via the policy settings. So I'm going to finish off with a couple of slides that talk about the architecture level here. And this is where we all moved in March. This is the environment that many users are faced with today. And what we're looking at here is that box of a a studio, could be a broadcast studio, VFX, a small, enterprise that has a creative team, as an example. And for those who were already using PCO over IP on site, so they were just connecting via PCO over IP to those stations, when they were all sent home, all they had to do was redirect the users from their home base on the right there into their existing infrastructure, which means all their storage resources and everything was exactly as expected before. And that square in the middle there with the small link icon is called the Cloud Access Connector. And what that does is it is a security gateway that manages between the private network on this broadcast studio side and the public internet on the right-hand side. Now, what's really interesting about this architecture is there's no VPN required. I've been on many webinars and spoken to customers these days who are struggling with virtual private network interfaces back into their infrastructure in the office, and there's licensing challenges, there's performance challenges, especially with storage, and then sometimes the storage is not necessarily back in the studio, it's in another place. So now you have this real complex infrastructure, and as we all know, the editorial application really needs to tie tightly into your storage resources to give you that responsive interaction. So when you're using PCO over IP over a public network like this, you have the secure encrypted pixel link into the studio. You could be using your existing workstation or virtual workstation, and your storage interfaces into those workstations is unchanged and really high performance. So you're enjoying the performance that you would as if you were working locally. So that's fantastic. A pointer on the that standalone edit bay is that could be a NVIDIA-based workstation using the Quadro workstation as an example, but we also work with AMD, and since COVID, we've spent effort making sure that the NVIDIA GeForce cards work. So that cloud access software, which is the small cloud logo there, can be installed on any of these flavors of simple non-virtualized workstations, and you can get going immediately with that. Or you can have a more sophisticated virtualized workstation, which would be the top diagram there. So we can move to the next slide. And I think Ray touched on this at the beginning. We also talked about, what does this look like in terms of the future and the cloud? And so we have what we would call the hybrid architecture here, which is becoming popular. And I think with the New World Order, this is going to be the way editorial software gets deployed in the future. So we have the square box with the on-site users. They could be working on-site again, hopefully at some time soon. And some workers may be at home. I think we've all agreed that many more people are going to be working from home in the future and dialing back into that on-premises infrastructure. The Cloud Access Connector there will manage all your multi-factor authentication and make sure you have this ultra-secure interface. Now, when we add that cloud resource on the top, so Avid works really closely with Azure, and so we have highly optimized Nexus storage available via Azure. So you get this real ability to augment your on-premises facilities with public cloud workstations, and this is really powerful for many reasons. The obvious one is remote locations where you have a project that's remote. Now what happens is you can go instantiate on Azure a small setup that allows your remote users in a geographic area to work on some workstations and then power them down when they're done with it. That blue cloud on the top right is a Cloud Access Manager, which is a feature of our Cloud Access software. In other words, if you have the Cloud Access subscription, it's included. And what that does is it facilitates all the connections between users and machines. So it manages the entitlement, security, authentication, and in the case of the Azure machine, it's actually also managing the power of those machines so that you're not being billed by Azure for when your machines are not in use. So you can set rules to power those machines on and off depending on when you're using them. And with a single management interface, that Cloud Access Manager now gives you global access to your combination of on-premises infrastructure and cloud infrastructure in any region. So this is really powerful. This diagram is a worldwide global view, which is really important for that future where We're wanting to add contractors to our on-premises infrastructure. Some corporations are moving towards more of an OpEx model where they don't want to spend so much money on their infrastructure. Others have reasons to be largely capital expenditure based, but they're starting to use the public cloud for AI services and some of these really interesting machine learning services that are coming online. So it really makes sense to have a cluster of workstations that are sitting local to your cloud services to support the front-end visualization of those in conjunction with your cloud ones. So that's a quick view of the architectures. And what I'm going to do is pass it back to Ray. And I think after that, we'll be taking questions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. That was fantastic. And what I would add to what you were just saying there, Ian, is that Edit on Demand is a turnkey production environment in the cloud, and that's actually available today. You can actually go to avid.com and look for Edit on Demand, and you can actually sign up for the early access program. And really what Edit on Demand enables is for folks to spin up a full production environment in a matter of hours, which includes compute, storage, bandwidth, and of course, Media Composer seats, up to 30 Media Composer seats that can spin up, as well as the Nexus file system, which has been deeply integrated with the Azure Blob storage stack. So what that means is Avid has spent significant engineering resources, as has Microsoft, to deeply integrate the Nexus storage file system across the Azure Blob stack. So basically, that's what's really powering a lot of these capabilities today, and from the standpoint of the performance piece, right? And so when you mix that with what Teradici brings to the table, you get a very secure environment where you're running, whether that be from home or remotely someplace, and you're doing a broader level of collaboration that quite simply wasn't possible before. And the fact that you can spin up the resources to run the environment and add other services, like you were saying, whether that be AI or machine learning or content processing, even distribution, all of that is either available today or coming very soon inside of Edit on Demand. And so what Michael showed was an example of using Teradici to access an on-prem environment. He also showed editorial management running from a simple web browser, accessing that same environment all through the web. And then last but certainly not least, we walked through a nice detailed overview of how Teradici enables these different workflows and the type of performance that we're delivering with a combined offering. And so with that, we'll just take a real quick look here at some of the questions folks are asking. Of course, one of the big questions always centers around audio. And so I don't know if you guys, Ian or Tommy, if you want to talk a little bit about the audio piece. Certainly you can do stereo, but certainly the folks are out there who would like to also do more tracks of audio. Do you guys have any thoughts on what's coming from an audio perspective?
Yeah, this is Ian. Absolutely. That's a question I field quite often. Yeah, today we're supporting full stereo audio, but especially with the recent move to cloud, people are doing a lot more with their editorial suites. And so we have a lot of demand for multi-channel audio 5171, and our teams are working currently on that. So I would say watch our releases to see when that comes out, but it's on the cards, and it's a fairly high priority feature.
Excellent. And then just out of curiosity, as you see things like 5G becoming available, either Ian or Tommy, how do you think that affects remote access environments, whether that be for on-prem or hybrid or cloud? Do you see that adding more in terms of both performance and security?
Yeah, I think one of the tough problems with cellular access was the higher latency. So 5G actually takes that latency latency and so you end up with a game changer in ability to now access, much like this diagram shows, directly into a cloud resource from any region over a wireless network. So I think it's going to make a big change.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree. I think 5G is going to change quite a bit. And it's going to provide even more in terms of the ability to work remotely. And hopefully, as COVID begins to subside and the industry realizes the significant amount of benefits we've all realized through these workflows, that we'll only see more and more of that, quite honestly, to enable folks to be pretty much, collaborating from literally anywhere. Does Teradici have the ability to work with a Mac host? I see there was a answer there, but for the group.
Yeah, that's another question we get quite frequently, because I think users are very familiar with Mac hosts. Unfortunately, Apple doesn't allow virtualization of their hosts in their terms. So today you can't virtualize or access Apple remotely. There are some technologies that are plug-in systems that sit side by side with a Mac host that will allow you to connect over PC over IP offered by third parties, but not an Apple host virtualized. Of course, you can use your Mac device as an endpoint device. We haven't talked about endpoints today, but of course, for cloud access software, you could be using a PC client, a Mac client, even mobile clients, Linux, Windows, Chromebook. So all these different devices are available at the endpoint, including, especially in LAN situations, the popular PC over IP zero clients, which are the stateless, high-performance silicon accelerated client devices.
Excellent. And then, Michael, what are you hearing from the industry in terms of, remote workflows and what people have realized? And do you hear any comments from folks you talk to about what life will be like once COVID kind of hopefully subsides, and hopefully soon?
Yeah, that would be nice. I think it's interesting. Out of necessity, everybody is having to work remotely, and it varies. People do want to go back to work, but there's also a lot of people who are finding that, wow, I got emails from some editors saying they didn't realize how easy it was for them to be able to work from home. It's something where if you can balance work life, that's good. If you can work from home, a lot of people are finding that they do like to spend more time with their family, and being able to work remotely is definitely opening up those possibilities. And what's interesting, also going back to the Mac client situation, because a lot of Hollywood is basically Mac, what a lot of people are also finding is, because working with Teradici and the ease of going into a PC, they're like, just switching their, mindset into a PC has not been as, difficult as they thought it was going to be. Again, offering up the ability to allow them to work remotely. So, it's definitely changed the way people are thinking and how they're working, but it's also opening up the possibilities, which is just fantastic.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I agree. I think the industry has certainly learned that there's a significant amount of benefits here, right? Not just from the standpoint of enabling business continuity through remote workflows and work from home type workflows, but also realizing that there's greater possibilities when you leverage the cloud from a collaboration standpoint, and the ability to spin up resources and do so very quickly. And then when you're completed that project, spin it back down and sort of migrate more to that OpEx model away from the CapEx model, which is definitely a key trend. Well, I think that's pretty much all the time we have for this evening. I want to thank everyone for joining the call today, and I want to thank Michael, Ian, and Tommy for being on the call as well. And I want to thank you all for your time. This will be posted once the recording is complete, and we'll answer any questions that haven't been answered in the chat post the call, and we'll certainly publish those as well. And if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to go to avid.com and learn more about any one of these solutions, or you can also visit teradici.com as well. And there's a whole host of white papers that go through significant environments. So regardless of whether you're a smaller sort of post house or a larger organization, there's something there for you as well. So thanks, everyone, and have a great evening, morning, or afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.